Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Rich Thurston, guitarist of the band No Grave. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated crew? On this episode, I'm joined by Rich. We were talking. He's got quite the resume right now. He's in a band called No Grave, but you've known him from Treason, Culture. I mean, Blood has been like, there's at least 5 notable bands here. Rich, how are you doing? Joining us from the car.
I'm literally from the car. I'm doing great. I'm doing great in the car.
It looks nice and sunny.
It is. It's not that sunny, but I'm okay with that too because I'm not a heat guy.
Yeah.
Even though I lived in Florida for like 25 years, so it's like a little overcast, but it's pleasant.
Nice. Are you drinking some coffee?
Currently, I am not. Right now, I am not. Did I break a rule? Did I break a rule for this thing?
No, it's not a cardinal rule. It's just, it's exciting to have a little coffee.
Do you need me to pull over and get some coffee? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not that dramatic. It's all good.
Okay. All right.
But you're not an afternoon coffee guy?
No. If I'm anything, it would be a morning guy.
Okay.
Or depending on what I'm doing, if I'm driving driving 16 hours in a 24-hour day, then I'll be an evening guy.
Whenever that calls.
2 weeks ago, it called for it. We played a show in Reading, Pennsylvania. So we drove out 8.5 hours. We're there for 5 hours and then drove back 8.5 hours and then played in our hometown the next day.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was miserable, but also amazing at the same time. So
it's crazy that because I know like younger bands that would never ever dream of doing that. Like they're like, I'm not doing that. And I even know older guys that are like, I would never do that. Like I need to like sleep after I play before I drive and everything. It's cool to hear like there's people that have been in it for a while that'll still go like, I'll drive anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of how I looked at it. And I had this conversation with the band. I think we were just driving. I'm like, does this make the most sense in the world? Absolutely not. But there'll be a point where I can't do it anymore for one reason or another. Because I'm not going to start another new band at 52. It's already enough of a headache now. Never mind. As the older I get, the less I want to start over. But so when the band's done, I there won't be necessarily a reason to do it. So eventually it'll go away. So why not take advantage of doing it while you can?
Yeah. It's like YOLO. You know what I mean? As cringe as
Literally.
that is.
Yeah. I don't want to say that. I'll let you do that. But you're right. It's it's all going to go away. We're not going to remember it. So we should enjoy it while we have the opportunity.
It's true. I'll tell you what I'm drinking because I unfortunately drink coffee in the afternoon because I'm an addict. And I'm dedicated to the bit. I have a coffee from Mello. It's one of my favorite Toronto roasters. I feel like I have them on maybe a little too much.
Okay.
And this is their Colombia Pedro Echavarria. I hope I said that correctly. I don't speak.
You probably didn't, but it's okay. It's okay.
Spanish, yeah. It's got notes of rose, grapefruit, and like this Japanese persimmon, very obscure fruit that nobody has probably ever tasted unless you're from Japan. But yeah, it's really good.
I mean, you're in it, huh?
Unfortunately, I mean, yeah,
I
we
mean,
blame COVID
appreciate
for the
I
those.
appreciate the dedication, my friend.
We blame COVID for the things that we delved into a little too far, maybe.
You can still blame COVID for everything. That seems to be what we do.
Yeah. So, but I think it's partially maybe a bit of like ADHD that hasn't been diagnosed or something.
Just gotta do it until until you just like I cannot physically do this anymore.
I can't stomach it any longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very good. So, do you have if you were to walk into a coffee shop right now, what would you order?
See, I'm an iced coffee guy. Because was never really a coffee guy. For as long as I could remember. Um, it just wasn't, and I'm not sure necessarily why I wasn't.
Mhm.
I never tried it to know that whether I was or not. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just like in my mind decided I hated coffee,
Mm-hmm.
so I just never drank it, and I would get mad if someone else did internally. I didn't like express it,
Right.
um, but yeah, I'm really just like I'm pretty simple. Oh, one thing that um, me and my girlfriend we watch Welcome to Wrexham,
Okay.
that soccer show
Yeah.
that and they have that the company Stoke is their like one of the sponsors, and I've been that's kind of been the go-to recently.
Nice. They got some good stuff.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know, I just literally only tried it because of the TV show, like no other reason.
Right.
So I guess they're to blame.
I guess marketing does work in those situations.
Yeah, like it was a like a cool commercial, and we're like, let's try that, and then that's what happened. So it did work.
I mean, it's super convenient too because you just grab a cup of ice and just dump from the container. So
Yeah, and you can walk in right in my grocery store has like 10 different ones.
oh wow.
So it's like, all right, here we go.
That's one thing about living like I love living in Montreal. It's sick. It does take a certain adjustment when you come from like the States, especially if you're from like the South, because I grew up in Georgia. And
Right.
like I'm so used
Where there are no French people.
yeah, like -1 French people.
Right.
And I'm so used to like having this like variety of products. Like you go into the grocery store and there's like 18 different types of that thing. And
Right.
like I remember going, we played a show in Massachusetts recently, and it had been the first time I'd gone over the border in like a couple of years. Go into a convenience store, they've got every type of, like Quest protein bars and like the peanut
Oh,
butter
yeah. Yeah.
cups.
There's like
So
a whole section of the store dedicated to it.
it's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I've
Yeah.
ever seen. and it's cheap. Here you can only get like two flavors of like the protein bar that tastes like a mixture of like chalk and glue. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Like, I
They
wonder
got
why that is. It's not like Canada's like, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, just Canada. Like, why would it be so hard
it's America
to
Light.
get that up there?
So yeah, I don't know, but you can buy those things at certain stores. So like we have a supplement store called Popeyes, not chicken, but a supplement store,
Right.
and you can buy all those. Like you can buy the chips and the protein cups and everything. Like they have all of it there, and you can only buy in everywhere else. You can only buy the bars, and I think maybe it's a deal that Popeyes has with Canada solely between
Could be.
Quest and that place, which I mean, fair on them for seizing that opportunity, but also it sucks.
Seems quite annoying.
It is because there's like three of them in town. So
I've been to Montreal. I was in Montreal once. Uh, Tara played a show there with A Death for Every Sin.
love a
It
death
was
for
like
every sin.
it was like I want to say it was like a fest.
Was it Heartfest?
I'm not going to remember it. The name of it, like Unearth played. I remember that. Um,
Oh, it's the extent. Was it the extensive one? I think it was the extensive fest.
okay, I'll take your word for it.
I've seen a flyer of it. I didn't live here
Okay,
anywhere near that time, but I have seen this flyer.
it probably would have been almost like it probably would have been like sometime in 2001, right before 2002, probably
Mhm.
would be my guess. Um,
I'm pretty sure I've seen this flyer.
yeah, Montreal was cool.
Back then it was very different too.
I mean, I'm sure, like just like everywhere else, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what Canada had to offer.
Do you remember how the crowd was?
Oh, it was amazing. I remember the show being really, really good.
Okay.
Like really good.
I've heard stories of like when Terror and like when A Death for Every Sin was around, as well as like Final Word and those bands,
Yeah.
like that group of guys that were playing at that time. And I've seen videos. There's a guy named Andy Mack from here who has like a whole catalog of videos from that time,
Oh,
and
nice.
it looks like watching like an American show. Honestly, from it looks no different, which is very cool because now it's definitely a little bit different. I would say, like when you play in the States compared to when you play a show in Montreal or even Ontario, there's definitely like a bit of a cultural difference. I don't know how to describe it differently than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think every scene and every city has their ups and downs
Mhm.
throughout years. Um, I remember seeing like videos of shows from like California and New York and stuff and thinking, but like back when I lived in Florida, thinking, man, like those scenes look amazing. And then like you would talk to someone that lived there, they'd be like, yeah, but it used to be better, like or everybody always has like it used to be better story.
Yeah.
Um, they probably don't like appreciate it in the moment, like,
Mhm.
oh, this is amazing. And they don't realize how amazing it was until it's changed.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely not to say what we have now isn't great. Like every year we've been doing this locals fest called the Madhouse, and it's literally 2 days, only local bands. Maybe there'll be some like bands from Ontario play, and it almost basically sells out Fufun, which is like that old kind of CBGB esque venue in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like 600 people, I think, show up to just see local bands,
Yeah, that's awesome.
which is insane for like a city of like only like 2 million people.
Yeah. We just played a show in Dayton, Ohio, which is essentially where the band is from. I'm a little further south, but everybody else is from Dayton. And it was all local bands. And it was the first time at this new venue. And there was like 225 paid.
Wow.
And for Dayton, like for Dayton, that's insane. That's crazy. So it was really cool that happened.
Is is Dayton where the Devil Wears Prada is from?
Yeah, but don't ask them because they don't want to tell anybody. It's like they're ashamed of it or something.
Why? There's lots of good
Who
bands from
knows?
Ohio.
There's a ton of good bands from Ohio, present and past. There's a lot
Yeah.
of great bands. I think, and again, it's just speculation. I think that there were a lot of years where Ohio hardcore in general had a violent reputation,
Mhm.
and I feel like they were trying to separate themselves from that. So it went
Yeah.
from we're from Dayton to we're from Southeast Ohio to we're from the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? It would change every time. It just kept changing to where they kind of weren't even from Ohio anymore.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah. I mean, now it'll be like, now that it's cool again, they'll be like Ohio hardcore, and it's
Yeah.
like, first of
Ohio
all,
hardcore. It's like, nah.
y'all are not even a hardcore band, so let's
Yeah.
end it there.
Number one, you're not hardcore, but number two, you gave up that a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. I remember there were like a lot of when I was a kid, I could only listen to like Christian music, quote unquote. A lot of
Okay.
really great bands came from Ohio. Like even that band Reliant K. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is
Yep.
weird that like I never knew that they were like a Christian band.
They like folded out like years into it, but they started out like on a Christian label and everything.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of bands did that.
Yep.
Like a lot of bands that like started off with like during like when Cornerstone was still doing those fests and stuff, and like there were a lot of bands that were like quote unquote Christian bands, and then like when that sort of faded off, they completely changed their directions. It was just, it was just kind of funny to see because Florida had we had Strong Arm, and there was always like a weirdness. We were all friends. There was just always a weirdness between like us and them type of thing. But I mean, they stuck to it. Yeah, I mean, I think bands sometimes, I don't want to say they use something because I'm sure they firmly had those beliefs and stuff, and it was cool that they had a place to be able to voice those,
right?
Feelings and convictions and things of that nature. I mean, to me, it's no different than a straight edge band that's not straight edge anymore.
Exactly.
It's the same idea. You were a straight edge band. You sang all these things about straight edge, and then you're now not straight edge. So you're not writing songs about that anymore.
Right.
To me, it's the same. It's the same idea.
My question is, are you a straight edge band if you don't use X cabs? You have to use X cabs if you're a straight edge band.
No, I don't think so. I don't think you have to. I mean, it helps. No, but yeah, I don't think you have to. And I don't even know if it necessarily even matters in like today's hardcore community as much. I mean, I will say that like for a band to come out and be overly straight edge is like rare now than what it used to be. So I feel like at some point there was like 4 bands that weren't straight edge and there was like 150 that were. And now it's like literally the polar opposite of that. Yeah. So when a band comes out and is like uber straight edge, I pay a little closer attention. Because it's rare. It doesn't happen as much.
It definitely was like whenever like COVID was kind of slowing down and bands were starting to release demos, even locally, it was like, wow, there's like way more straight edge bands than I remember.
Yeah, well, there's way more bands in general. Like a lot of those bands that put out stuff, like that's all they did was just record something during COVID, and they never were actually a band.
That's true.
They just, let's just get together in my living room and just record this on my computer. and that's what they did, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I mean, No Grave was a COVID band. That's when it started. Me and the singer were in other bands, and then we just like I had some songs right at the end of Treason. When Treason broke up, I had 6 or 7 songs that I wanted to record, and I asked the singer that we have now to put vocals on it. It really was just me and him at first. On the first recording, I played all the music and he did all the vocals. Like I recorded the drums, the bass, the guitars, and then he did the vocals. And then once there was a label that wanted to put it out, I was like, well, we should probably get band members then. Like I would expect this label wants us to play a show or two. So that's really how it all turned into like an actual band.
I mean, I feel like that's the case for a lot of bands that came out either like right towards the end or in the middle of COVID it was like one person wrote a bunch of shit or two people wrote a bunch of shit. And then it's like, oh, this is interesting. So then they put it out and like, I don't know if it was like a lot of luck. Like there's a band from here that basically in COVID, the singer wrote and recorded an entire LP and then put it out on a label. They found a bass player and then they immediately started playing shows like on this LP.
Right.
So there, I've seen a few of those, like even Pure Bliss put out like an LP basically. And like they're on Unbeaten now. So I feel like that's like the new model of making bands is one person does the whole thing.
It kind of goes back to what we talked about, how like touring, it becomes so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And like recording and starting bands. I mean, I could be in a band now with 5 different members from 5 different parts of the world, really.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm going to send you this song, record the guitars for it. All right, send it back. Like it's just a different thing where like I feel like overall that's a cool thing, but I think sometimes there was something to be said about 4 or 5 dudes that lived, 10 minutes from each other, hunkered down in a shitty practice space 4 days a week writing songs.
Right.
It was just a cool vibe.
I mean, I've definitely gone both routes. Like I've tried writing remotely, but I don't call me old school. It just makes more sense when I'm in the room with another person jamming out ideas. And
I think so too. Yeah.
And it otherwise it just takes forever. And I feel like I don't have that energy to like run the ideas past somebody. I need somebody to tell me no. Say no.
Yeah. If it's not good, I need you to tell me it's not good. Because if not, I'll think it's great. It'll end up on something and then everyone's going to say, that sucks.
Yep.
Like kind of what we do now is my buddy Sean has a studio and I'll have a bunch of guitar riffs and I'll go there and record them and then we'll just program drums to them. And then I'll give it to everybody else to say, what do you think? This is the basic idea. And then the drummer will come along and do his thing and make the song, 100 times better. And sometimes the riffs just don't work.
Yep.
And you're like, yeah, it doesn't. After recording, you're like, it doesn't work. So it's definitely like a helpful tool to be able to demo stuff a lot easier than we used to be able to.
That's why I think bands have really lost, like with the whole recording in the box. Everybody's got like a recording rig now where you can just set it up and like record something and send it out immediately. And you've kind of lost this aspect of like you write and then you pre-prod. Then you take those pre-prods and you listen to them and you kind of nitpick the fuck out of them until everybody's like 100% happy. You get it with the producer. The producer's like, that could be better, tweak this. Then you come record the entire thing so that it's the best that it can be. Now people just go from writing to recording it and putting it out. And you've skipped this whole journey of production.
Yeah. And I think also too, like bands are so quick to release something and put it on like streaming stuff, Spotify, Apple, and like, while that's really awesome that there are platforms for you to just put that out to where anyone that has access to those platforms can hear it. There's also like, you get lost in the shuffle because there's another 700 bands that are doing that.
Right.
So like, I feel like it just takes a little, like if a lot of newer bands would just slow down a little bit and think about, not I'm gonna say like it has to be some big strategic thing, but like, put a song out and then like the next month put another song out, maybe even do a video. You could do low budget videos now that used to cost $5,000 are now a couple $100 to your buddy because we have that technology now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have to give more content than you would normally have to in the past because there's so much content now.
Right.
You have to do something that separates yourself.
Yeah, the game has definitely changed like a lot, which is everybody, I guess, still trying to find footing and figure out what to do. But yeah, the name of the game is content, unfortunately, and sometimes that content is not good.
Right, right. But because there's no one there telling them, "Hey, this is not good."
Yeah,
They just recorded it and put it out. It's like, all right. But even then, I'm still kind of like, it's cool that you're putting it. You started a band.
Yeah.
Like, if you're happy with it, I guess that's probably the most important thing, really.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you just want to get together with a couple of your buddies and write a songs, then you're doing it right.
That's true. And I think that's why we all started in the first place anyway. So
Oh yeah. I mean, my first band was terrible. Terrible. But like, I thank God that I had the opportunity to do it.
yeah.
Like it was, I think back to it now with like good thoughts about the band. Like, man, that was a lot of fun. And I remember what was going on in my life in those times. And it was just a cool thing. Sometimes I think there's another phenomenon I think that goes on too is bands will get together and act like they're a band that deserves this insane respect immediately. Like they act like they're huge.
Yep.
Because they didn't have to put any of the work into it. Where like earlier in life, there's a lot of legwork that had to go into being in a band if you wanted to go play shows and record and all that stuff. And now a band, gets some swanky website or Instagram page and records in their living room and puts it out. They think that, oh yeah, our guarantees are $500-$600 a night. It's like, well, they're not, because you're never going to get that. And so there's the other side of the coin where I'm stoked to see that people are starting bands, but also like stop that part of it. You know what I mean? Just knock that part of it off.
Yeah, like algorithm does not translate to quality, essentially.
Oh no, I know several bands that you look at their Spotify page or whatever, and it says like, 150,000 listeners, and they'll play a show and there's 7 people there.
Yep.
It's like that does not translate. The internet's not going to make your band unless you're in one of those bands where every single member is from a band that everyone already knows.
Right.
Then you might be able to pull that off.
Yeah. You can't all be like, what's that Dead Body? The one with the Young Brothers and everybody's in like the biggest band in LA.
Yeah. But rightfully so, because they've all put in the work. So I'm happy for those guys that it's that easy. Honestly, like I think it's great. I mean, another band, like a little more mainstream band, like Better Lovers. Like the whole band is from huge other bands previously, so they're immediately paid attention to. But they've all done the work. They've all started in garages, playing in front of 6 people, and they built their resume up to what it is. So those bands I get, because they'll have 1 million listeners and there'll be, 2,000, 3,000 people at every show they play.
Yeah.
It translates.
I mean, Greg can play a show solo and sell out like a club.
Sure. Yeah. And again, like, as he should be able to do that.
Yeah.
So anyways, coffee. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I was like, let's get back on rail. We were talking earlier, you went to your first show when you were 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that experience?
It was terrifying.
Who was it?
It was absolutely terrifying. It was a Gnostic Front and Verbal Assault at the Cameo Theater in Miami Beach, Florida.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was like the scariest thing, but also like the absolute greatest thing in the world, obviously, because I stuck with it for all this time. Like, I think I told my parents I was staying at a friend's house, and I still to this day do not remember how I got down there. Um, I'm sure someone's older brother drove us down there or something, because I lived at least 40 minutes from Miami Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So at 16 with no license, I don't know how the hell I got down there, but I did. I did. So that's just how it all started. It was right there.
Was the Miami area scene as notorious as it is today? Like, was it still crazy and pretty violent and everything like that?
I would go even a little step further and say it was more crazy and more violent because there was nobody watching. No one had phones.
Yeah, there's
Nobody
no
had.
video.
There was no video, so shit would just happen until we got tired. So I was like, back then, it was, it was kind of lawless back then, man. Like South Beach was like the land that time forgot. It's not like the Art Deco movie star shit you see now. It was a slum.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was pretty bad. So like it was just like a wild time down there. That was during like all the cocaine wars and stuff down there.
Oh yeah.
With all the cartels, and It was right when like all the immigrants start coming over from like Haiti and Cuba and stuff. It was a wild time down there because that's where they would land, would be like South Beach.
Right.
The Coast Guard built like a giant facility down there just because of all that. And it was just crazy.
So compared to like the days of that kind of earlier scene and the newer hype, what do you think is like the main difference with this kind of new wave of people discovering hardcore online and going to like FYA, or they go to like, because it's not so much like they're all going to local shows, it's more like people are kind of accumulating at fests.
While I think it's awesome that the access is there for people who may not otherwise have gotten the opportunity, I do think that there is definitely like fest hardcore kids only, which you can't sustain with that. There has to be your local scene, if there is one. If there is not one, you should probably try and start one. Because a lot of these bands rely on touring for their livelihoods. And if you're just going to fests and not going to their regular tour dates, I think you're doing yourself and them a disservice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a give and take. Like, while I'm really glad that you can get these new faces into it, I also wish that some of these new faces weren't into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, not to be like gatekeepy or elitist, but it's like at a certain point, if it's not like, if you're just there to spectate for the novelty of it, then it's almost like not productive.
Right.
Because I see a lot of spectating.
If all you're doing is 3 weekends a year, you're not really helping anything. But also, I don't know that it's been instilled in some of these younger kids that they should be doing more.
Right.
Like, I don't know that like they get that part of it because it was so easily accessible to them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that they know, like, oh, there's a whole nother part of this.
Right.
And personally, I think there should have been a little bit more gatekeeping going on. Like, we kind of slept on it a little bit.
A little,
You know
like
what
a
I mean? Like
little, like a little bit.
we slept on it a little bit to where we probably should have been like, hang on a second, we got to regulate some of this. But that's just probably my 51-year-old stay off my lawn attitude.
Yeah. I will admit I have been hanging out with maybe some older heads recently, which is
Yeah.
sometimes can get a little negative. It's not bad. It's just when you've been involved, in playing music, especially in such a specific culture for so long, you can get a little jaded about certain things, which is fine.
Sure. Like when you've been in the trenches,
Yeah.
you know, sleeping in vans for 5 days because there's no place to stay and you couldn't afford to get a hotel, and then like now you see these bands that they're driving their families RV around the country. Like, wait a minute. Like you've been a band for 6 months. What's happening here? So, I mean, there is a little bit of that, like, but also listen, it's just different,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be, because I'm sure that there were guys that were before me talking about me being the new guy was like, yeah, you don't know how it used to be, like that kind of thing. It just goes with the territory. It just
Yeah.
happens,
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you hear people talk about sports. Someone talks about LeBron's the best. Well, Jordan's the best. Well, they're two different eras. You can't compare them, you know?
Yeah.
Football before was so much better. I'm like, yeah, but there was also a lot more brain damage. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to compare the two
Yeah.
or three different. I mean, to my estimation, there's probably been about 4 incarnations of hardcore since it started.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, relatively young when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of hard to say who's right or who's wrong in it. But I think just because some of us older guys and girls have been around it for so long that we've deemed ourselves the ones who are able to make those distinctions. You know what I mean? Like, no, we've been here forever.
Yeah. You've just seen the changes. So it's like,
Yeah.
if you've been around for at least 3 waves, I think that you're good.
Yeah. Or you just have your head on right.
True.
You have some people that are around you that kind of like, no. Here's why you guys are lucky. So it's, like I said, it's a give and take. It's a good and bad, just like most everything else.
I know that you are in No Grave and you were in Treason. Were you in other notable things that I don't know about?
Like currently or just from the past?
From the past.
Oh yeah, I've been in like what seems like 100 bands. I was in Culture from Florida.
Yeah.
Then I was in Blood's Been Shed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was in Blood's Been Shed. I guess it was 99 when I started playing for them. Started playing bass, and then I ended up playing guitar.
Damn.
Yep. And then I was in Terror. But I think everyone at my age group has been in Terror
That's what I was going to
one
say.
way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saying you were in Terror is like, well, yeah, of course you were.
Well, because you're from upstate New York.
No, I'm not. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Well, I had known Scott since Despair, because Culture and Despair would play together all the time. And funny story, he messaged me. Actually, well, Despair and Culture were in Europe at the same time. And he was talking about how Despair was kind of on the rocks and wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I was like, well, let me know. Like, if you want, because I was kind of done with Culture at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if you want me to move to Buffalo, I'll play in Despair. He's like, cool. When we get back to the States, we'll link up. Well, eventually, obviously, Despair broke up. And he was like, yeah, we're not going to be a band anymore, but I'm going to start this new band. If you want to move up here and be in that, I'm down with that. And in my infinite wisdom, I was like, nah, I'm just going to move to Ohio. Meanwhile, that band was buried alive.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, so there's that. So then, the next time comes around when Scott Vogel's like, do you want to play in a band with me? You don't say no twice. You just say yes and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. I was gonna ask if there's like I was like, there's no way that it was Terror that early. Like it had to be Buried Alive. So I was gonna ask if this was before or after Buried Alive, if you hadn't said that.
Yeah. It was, I joined the band right before the Bridge Nine release, the first Bridge Nine release came
Okay.
out.
Man, that's so
Like,
that's
like
cr-
I'm on that recording.
okay. Damn. That's a crazy resume.
I mean, like you said earlier in our conversation, you're in it long enough, you tend to find yourself in some really great situations and some really terrible situations. Just depends on how you look at it, half glass full or half empty, really.
I mean, you could have been in Bane at one point, and that would have been maybe not. You
Yeah,
could have
I mean,
toured.
who knows? Who knows? Funny story. Culture was going to move to Boston. We had talked about moving to Boston, and because we just wanted to get out of Florida, and Aaron Delbeck was going to play guitar for us from Bane and Be Well, and it just never
Yeah.
happened. So I could have been like adjacent, Bane adjacent.
I mean, that's the thing is like it's so easy. I mean, back then it was probably maybe a little bit harder unless you were touring a bunch and then you would just like meet everybody who was in every city. But now it's like you play a show in one city, then you meet so many people through online and stuff. Now it's like crazy. I feel like that just makes it bigger and more complicated.
Yeah, well, being as old as I am, I've seen the progression of all of it. Like I've seen, I've used an atlas and written map and written directions. Then MapQuest came along, and then everybody has a computer in their pocket now. So touring and also just being able to keep in touch with people that you meet is just so much easier now than obviously ever before.
Right.
So we hear, but you used to just like hear folklore about other shows and other scenes and other towns all across America, and now you can, click a button and see that exact show that everyone was talking about. So it's really, I think it's great. I think it's great that a band can just get in a van and go play shows and like know where they're going. Like I'm really happy
Yeah.
for them because there was plenty of times where we were just like, well, we get off of this exit and then I'm not really sure what happens after that. So, you just show up and like turn left at the billiards hall and then right at the gas station and we're 4 doors down. All right. I just, you didn't really know what you were getting yourself into. But it was also like the best time too. Because we didn't know any different, like we had nothing to, before that, it was the same. So it was like, there was no, like that was the way it was for, I don't even know how many years, that's how bands did it.
Yep.
And then, then slowly, surely technology caught on. But yeah, like just being able to stay in touch with people that you meet and all across the country and the world really it's a pretty unique and awesome thing.
Yeah. Makes our scene smaller, I guess.
Yeah, because it really is. When you think about it, it's as far as the music quote unquote industry goes, we're not even a speck of dirt in the large scheme of the world. But I feel like we're probably the most, I don't want to say close knit. I just think that we are easily accessible more so than other genres.
Yeah.
Metal is probably like not metal, but not like metal. I'd say not like Metallica metal, but like thrash metal, death metal, that kind of thing. Is probably the closest second to us. having the accessibility to people and bands and being able to sometimes meeting your heroes and being stoked, and sometimes meeting them and being completely bummed out. It just, again, it's just it's a crapshoot, but it's my first show was when I was 16. I'm going to be 52 in January. It's just wild that it's something resonated where it stuck with me for as long as it has.
Do you prefer guitar or drums?
That's a hard one. Probably, man, I don't know. I really enjoy playing both, for different reasons. I guess because all songs start with a riff, I would like guitar more, because then you're kind of like the guy or the girl, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like but drums it was just a lot of fun playing drums. I feel like I got better as time went on playing drums. It was just cool. Like I could try different things I hadn't done before, and I don't know, just maybe I don't want to say it was more fulfilling, but it was definitely, I had more of those, oh shit, I can do that moments playing drums than I did playing guitar. Because let's be honest, I'm just fucking crunching away in guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just throwing mosh parts out there and see who can grab on. I mean, really, there's only so many ways you can chug the E string.
Yeah.
I know. We'll drop tune it, and then you drop tune it, and now you're all right. Well, now we're going to go even lower. Like, wait a minute, what's happening?
Oh wait, if I play in standard, I can do crowbar chords. Whoa, that's even heavier.
That sounds even heavier. And there was always ways trying to find a way to make it different and sound different, but in reality, it kind of all sounds the same, really.
I like drums because I feel like you get to drive the song.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, the drums are definitely the beat that you follow. You feel it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. There are some guitar parts where you're like, oh shit, someone's going to die. Like, it's coming. You know what I'm saying? There'll be a build up and you're like, oh, everyone that within a, 6 to 8 foot radius of me is about to get their nose broken. Like, that riff's coming sometimes. Other times the drums tell you when that riff is coming.
That's true.
So I'm just stoked that I'm able to play music, instruments. Like I took 2 bass lessons my whole life. Everything else I've kind of self-taught myself. And it's really just been my internal clock is really good. You know what I'm saying? I can count to 4, and a lot of people can't. And we've seen those bands who cannot count to 4, it's I'm just lucky. Like, I feel lucky. Like, I feel like I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but I've been given a gift to be good enough.
Right.
And that's why I feel like even if I'm not in another band again after this one, I'll still write and record music, because that's just what I've done. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'll still have music to write. I just won't. I don't want 3 or 4 other nerds in the way.
That's when it gets complicated.
It does. It's when it turns into, oh, I can't do this because I got to go pick strawberries with my girlfriend. What? What did you say to me? You know what I'm saying? Everyone, especially when you get older, everyone's in this. You have a life. You can't just be in a band. I mean, if it's a band that's actually the thing that's making you the money to survive, sure. But if I'm starting a new band at 50 years old, that band's not paying the bills. You know what I mean? I'm I'm doing it because I have to do it. I feel like I have to do it. And it's a labor of love. And, if I can go play a show and 20 kids punch each other in the face, I feel like I've accomplished my goal for the evening.
It's crazy how the standards change over time, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Sure.
It goes from I want to live off of this music to I want 20 kids to punch each other in the face.
After I've driven 8.5 hours to go play in front of 20 kids. I have an idea. Hear me out, guys. This is what I want to do. We're going to book a show 8.5 hours away. We're going to get there. It's going to be outside in a tent. And then we're going to play in front of like 30 people. And then guess what we're going to do? We're going to get right back in this van and drive directly back home, only to play in our hometown the next night. Yes. Where do I sign up for that? Right here.
Sounds like just a, what am I trying to say? Groundbreaking idea.
Yeah, because no one's ever done that before.
No.
I've been on entire tours like that. Like I remember when Culture, we had booked we booked a week or two. I think it was a 2-week tour, and we got about 4 states away, and the van literally exploded.
Yeah,
and we were in Poughkeepsie, New York, and we had to take a bus. This is no joke. A bus with a Greyhound with all of our gear from Poughkeepsie, New York to Miami, Florida.
So like 4 days worth of travel.
We were in the bus for 26 hours. It was ridiculous. But you know what? If I go back at that time again, I'd do it all over again.
Yeah.
Because why not?
What I know that, touring, we were talking, it used to be very different where you've got the MapQuest. And then before that, you've got a road map atlas of the United States. Like whoever's listening, if you were born before 1995, we used to have these road maps, these maps that you would unfold, and it had highways all across the US. And
they were the most important things ever. Like you would find a new atlas, you go buy a new atlas, and you thought you invented like hybrid engines. Like you thought you were the greatest, like check this one out. You're like what are we doing? Like it's an atlas. It just tells us how to get from here to there. Like, but those things were like the life's blood.
Yeah. I remember you'd open a car dashboard and there'd be like 6 different atlases depending on what part of the country you were in.
Yep. And then you'd have city maps too.
Yeah.
For cities that were just insane. Like if you were going to New York or Boston or something where like everything is a one way, you had to like look at the map to see what you were doing. Yeah.
So even in Savannah, people had cities. Savannah is a town of 100,000 people, right? But it's littered with one ways and weird squares and shit like that. So if you'd see tourists, I mean, up until 5 years ago, tourists turning down the wrong road on a one way.
Yeah.
That's very
and you're
dangerous.
Kind of like, no, you can't do it. All right. We'll
I'll be yelling, yo.
Stop it.
I was going to ask you, what is the craziest, like, I don't know if it's like crazy. What's like the wildest having to use a road atlas story you have?
Let's see. It's been a hot minute. So, I think it was, we played Culture. Was it Culture? No, it was my band I was in, One Nation Under. We played a show in Buffalo. And we didn't have phones, cell phones. So it was, here's the venue, here's the directions from the highway. So we used the atlas, Then we got to the venue, and apparently the show had been moved. Like that day. And it was apparently in an email that I got. Now, I don't have a phone to check my email. We're driving from Ohio to Buffalo. Nowhere in there am I going to get, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I had to call home. My roommate at the time, I gave him my email information. He opened the email, gave me the new address. it was one of those addresses that like shouldn't be like it's an address that like to nowhere, but there's a building there. You know what I'm saying? So imagine us frantically trying to look at this atlas zoomed in Buffalo, trying to figure out where exactly this place was. And we got there with 5 minutes left of the headlining band playing. And then we ended up having to headline because we we were driving around for like 2 hours trying to find it.
Yeah, I think that's like such a common story. I feel like that happens so much. Like even Dave, who's got extensive up here, he's been booking shows for like 25 years, I think it is this year. Yeah. And he tells me all the time he'd have bands crossing the border, and it'd always be like a toss up whether they got turned around or not. And it'd be like,
oh hell yeah, yeah.
Until they find a phone booth to call and be like, hey, we made it, we'll be there.
Yep. Yeah, it was a really funny story about Canada. We were playing in Windsor, and One Inch and Under was we were playing in Windsor, and our drummer at the time was 17.
Oh, nice.
And his dad hand wrote a note saying it was okay that his son went into Canada. And it worked.
Of course it worked.
They let us go through. I was like, they let us go through. I could not believe it. I thought for sure. I'm like, there's no way. We're going to get turned right around. Have to drive 4.5, 5 hours back home. There's no way. And like, they just put it like in a file and like, let us go about our life.
Well, yeah, that's because if something happens and the dad's like, why was my son in Canada? It's like, well, we have this note from you.
Right.
They just pull it out.
They might have even called him too. Mm-hmm. Like had the drummer call his dad and they were on the phone. Like, I think there was a little bit more to it than just like, oh no, cool, go ahead. But it's just wild. Like, I'm pretty sure that at this point, I'm not allowed in Canada. I'm fairly certain. I was pushing it when I was in Terror, and then I can't confirm nor deny that there may be a few other things that have happened in that period of time that would keep me from enjoying the Great White North. But I'm not even going to try it at this point. Like, yeah. It's all right. I don't have to go to Canada. It's fine.
Well, tell me about No Grave disappeared completely. Put it out 2023.
Yep. Like I said, it started off with just me and the singer. We were messing around with some other bands, and I had these songs. When Treason ended, I had about 5 or 6 songs, and I was like, well, I want to record these regardless. Mm-hmm. So I went to our guy, his name's Sean. He was actually in Treason with me, and he has his own studio and stuff, and we cracked everything and did the vocals and stuff, and then I didn't really I we're just gonna put it out, you know, just to put it out. I didn't really even think about starting another band. Mm-hmm. I was almost just gonna be done then with bands, you know. And then I sent it to Mario at Upstate Records because we had talked about Treason possibly doing something, and I was like, hey, this is what I got going on now, you know, check this out, tell me what you think. And it just sort of went from there. And then once he was interested, I was like, all right, well, we should probably get some band members together. So that's really just that's how it started. It was pretty organic. It wasn't really like a thing I was trying to start, mm-hmm. necessarily a whole new band, but it just sort of worked itself out that way.
Are y'all because y'all have some stuff coming up, I think, like y'all played some fests and have some fests coming up and some shows.
Yeah, we played This Is Hardcore this year, which was fun. We played the first day. Right. We played the first day, and that was a lot of fun. Shout out to Joe Hardcore because he hooked it up, because I'm sure there were plenty of other bands that would have that are more popular and maybe perhaps more deserving to play it. But he gave us a shot to go ahead and do it. So that was awesome. And yeah, we have we're playing a lot of local shows, and we try and do weekends whenever we can, because like going on tour is just not in the cards for us. So we just try and do weekends every other month or so. Go to different parts of the Midwest and East Coast.
Are y'all gonna keep writing on it, or how's it? Is it mostly just see what the EP does in the next few months or so?
Well, we already have 7 new songs were completely recorded and done. We want to have 10 songs done for a full length. So we have 2 more songs in the works. Then we're going to do a cover. So yeah, I guess we'll just see what happens. I'm gonna send Mario doesn't know this yet, but I'm gonna send him the song. Send him the song soon. Haven't told him forever ago that we were recording, and it seems like it's taken months to do this. So we just got the final mixes back of the 7 songs, so they'll be able to be sent out. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. It just it's fun. So until it's not fun, I'll keep doing it.
That's the name of the game. Until it's not fun, keep doing it.
Yeah, until it's not fun anymore. When it becomes a burden or a source of stress or anxiety, then I'll just sell all my gear and become a barber like every other former band member.
I mean, that tracks. How many straight edge or ex straight edge hardcore barbers are there now? I think it's.
I think all of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that all of them are.
I think half of my barber shop is made up of ex straight edge hardcore guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's how it goes, man. It's natural progression. or regression, depending on how you look at it.
Just sell your gear, break edge, start listening to rockabilly music, I think is the.
Yeah. Because why wouldn't you do that? Makes perfect sense.
But then there's like a weird fine line there of becoming a white supremacist. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, that's another whole you're not wrong. Like you are, sadly enough, you are not wrong.
It's either you get into rockabilly or you start playing or listening to oi music. I think there's a weird fork in the road path you go down.
You have a choice to make. There's a choice to make, and you have to choose wisely.
One of them is the correct path, and one of them is not. It's just that's on you morally. I don't know.
Right, morally, you have to make a decision.
And it's basically your retirement path.
Yeah, because you're not coming back from that. So whichever way you go, that's where you're stuck forever. Yeah, I think I just do it until it's not fun, or do it just until it's run its course. I don't necessarily have a due date or expiration date on it. It's really just until it runs its course. And it's kind of a cool thing because in all my other bands, I don't want to say I had this like, everybody that's in a band wants their band to do well.
Mm-hmm.
I just had this Gestapo way of running the band that like would become a source of frustration, a source of anxiety and stress, and it made it not fun. But because I invested so much time in it, I decided that I just had to stick it out. With this band, it's really just fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other reason to be in it other than having a creative outlet and to go have fun and go see different places with friends.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we all start bands. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, this has definitely been a very eventful I don't know if I've done an episode this long. Me and Brian from Death Before Dishonor, he was on his way to work as well. So
That's funny.
I find the driving episodes are always kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that hour I just drove to meet that guy flew by.
I know. Where did it go? And now you've got you're 1 amp richer. Look at that.
I mean, I'm on my way to stardom.
Yeah.
I'm on my way, boys.
Before we go, let me know, what's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
My favorite city?
Yeah.
Like ever?
I mean, yeah.
Man, that's a tall order there.
You gonna make some enemies or?
No, I don't think so. I just think that I've been to so many dope cities. I'll make it easy. I'll just say Philly because there's so many shows that happen there,
mm-hmm.
and they're all good, and so many places to eat, and all your baristas, and which is also another job that seems to be hardcore adjacent as well.
Oh yeah, it is.
Opening coffee shops with like a little tiny venue that plays like Americana music. So I'm just gonna go. Yeah, no, right? Sorry. I'm just gonna go with Philly because it's in the middle of, like it's like right in the middle there between some really awesome places. But I mean, I was born in Boston, so I love Boston. Miami, Cincinnati, Dayton. I mean, it's you're around long enough, you get to visit some incredible spots and meet people from all those places. So yeah, but I'll just say Philly for argument's sake.
It's a good answer. Good answer.
Diplomatic answer.
It's, I don't want to say safe, but
Philly's not safe. Hang on. No. You didn't say safest city.
No.
Because Philly's not even in that discussion at all.
I think not physically safe, like in terms of interests safe. Rich, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. Fun. It was fun.
It's great hearing from you.
Yeah, I'll let you know what happens with those 10 songs. I'll shoot them over to you so you can give me your professional opinion.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to hear it.
Then you can leak it on SoundCloud or something.
I don't even know how to do that. So.
Me either.
Well, perfect. I hope you have a safe drive home, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Rich for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Disappear Completely, the latest EP from No Grave, and check their Instagram for all of their upcoming dates. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.